Awesome. Hi, everyone. Thank you so very much for tuning in. Sorry about the technical difficulties. Hopefully we don't have any more. Thank you, Jesus. But welcome to our weekly Facebook and Instagram lives. However, tonight we're only on Instagram. This will be made available on our IGTV stories and everything afterwards. So please share it. We do want to get the word out as much as possible. Hey, Shop, Recover, Repeat. Hey, Angie. And give us your comments. We are here to basically have a very open conversation, discussion on race and relationship and what it means to be Christian in all of this, what it means to be a Christian fashionista in all of this.
Yes.
And we're going to discuss things like how to be a better white ally, how to use your white privilege for good, the difference between being non-racist and anti-racist, and there is a difference, and we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
We're also going to talk about the actionable steps that you can actually take at the end to really move the needle. Both Martu and I are very much about taking action and, moving things in the right direction. And we're going to talk about what does the Bible really say about all of this and how can we respond in love and build real relationships? How can we take our relationship with Christ and carry it over into this situation? So we're going to be talking about all of that. So it's going to be very laid back. We'll take questions from the audience. We'll kind of see how everything goes. So first off, I want to sincerely apologize for not having this conversation sooner. And I know that's what a lot of people have been asking, why did it take this? Why has it taken people standing up for this? And I think for a certain degree, I was very naive in the past about the issue of racism. I thought, I'm not racist. How can racism still exist? We got rid of slavery years ago. How can this still be? And really the larger issue behind this is really a human rights issue, not really a race issue. And, I take full responsibility for my knowledge and my lack of it. And so I want to apologize for that. I want to also apologize for anything that I might say tonight that may not be 100% correct. It may offend you. I may say something that's not 100% correct. And I just want you guys to know that I'm doing this out of love. I want you to know my intentions are good. I'm here to really, shine light on the situation, on what's really going on in our country, to see how we can act and respond the way that Christians should respond. And what can we really do going forward to make a difference and really instill change? How can we build that bridge that obviously has been torn down and has never really been built to begin with? How can we build that bridge? And how can I share my platform and share the influence that I do have with women of color like Martu so that their voices can be heard, their pain can be heard, and we can really, hashtag share the mic. And that's really what this is all about. So I also want to, secondly, thank you, Martu, so very much for spending your time with me. You are such a good friend. You are my sister in Christ. We've both worked in the fashion industry and have very similar crazy Devil Wears Prada nonsense that kind of goes on. And it's just such a breath of fresh air to know you, to work with you. And Martu has amazing experience in the industry. She's going to talk a little bit about herself. And she's an educator. She's a consultant like me. We work together. We help our brands out.
That's Freeman-Parker. And I have my own business, MEF Productions, where I work with aspiring designers here in Miami and around the country. I also teach at our local college here, fashion entrepreneurship, production management, sourcing, and fabrics and trim and textiles. So I've been in the industry since late 90s in New York is where I started I grew up as an adult in New York in the fashion industry. So, I've experienced it from, I can say, every angle possible. But before we get into that, I just want to create that this is a safe space. Ignorance is not a bad thing. It's just not a bad thing. And this conversation is absolutely new. So it's no right or wrong. It's just, let's feel free to express ourselves, and it's safe. I'm not here to be offended or to teach anyone. I just want to share. And I want to open up the space to anyone that wants to share, because these questions have never been asked before. They've been thought of. You know, we secretly say these things as we walk by people in our heads, but it's not proper to say it out loud. When you're in a group of women, with a group of women, we don't talk about race, you know, unless we're in our own race. So this is a new conversation, it's a new space, but in this place is a Christian space and it's safe. So there's no wrong and there's no right. It's just, let's understand and let's figure it out together. And that's how I feel with all of my friends that, you know, have come to me out of just pure like disgust with what's going on and saying to me, Martu, I didn't know. And for me, it's like, thank you for acknowledging you didn't know.
Yeah.
That's where I go. Thank you for acknowledging you didn't know. And then go from there, you know? Because you can't, if it's not talked about or it's not explained to you, you don't know. A lot of behaviors are silently taught. You know, your parents don't say, you know, black, white. They might just say, you might not want to go over there on that side of town. You know, they're not like us. No name, no color, but they're just not like us. So you just know, you know what I mean? So it's a silent way we communicate racism. It's not a conversation. It's just the way we act and things we say. There's key words we have in our community to let us know, you know, we're talking about other races, but we have to stop that. It can't continue like that because we have a whole world crying, and it shouldn't be, not in 2020.
Yeah, I totally agree. And even, you know, what you were saying about the silent things that are being taught. I mean, I have a son, he's almost 2 years old. He looks and does everything I do. Whatever I do, he repeats, he watches and repeats. I don't have to teach him. I don't have to tell him. He just looks and watches. And so sometimes it's not even the things that are necessarily coming out of your mouth, but just the way you act.
Your reaction
to things. Yeah, totally, for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's first talk about, I think, a very important topic that I was recently made aware of: the difference between being non-racist and anti-racist. Okay. So I will openly admit, I thought being non-racist was fine. I thought, hey, I'm not racist. I have black friends. I'm married to a black man. I work with black people at my job. Like, I don't have a problem with racism. But I'm now understanding, and rightfully so, that that's not enough. Yeah. It's not enough to be not racist. You actually have to go one step further and be anti-racist, meaning you have to be against it. You have to be actionably taking steps to show about it, right? Not just to prove that, like, okay, yes, I'm anti-racist or whatever, but to actually do something that's going to make a difference. Yeah,
it's an action word. It's actually an action word. It's just not a statement, it's an action word. And, you know, no one's really been tested until times like these, if you're actually a racist or not. You know, I remember back in the 80s with the whole, oh my God, I wrote it down and I forgot. The guy in LA that got beat up by the cops, Rodney something. If anyone knows, type it in. He was beat up by the cops in the 80s. And I remember being in high school and we couldn't discuss it because I went to my school was a desegregation school. So we were busted and we were told not to, like, we could not discuss it. And then of course we had our private conversation, and every single white person in school believed that the cops was right for beating this man half to death while we were enraged. But we were told we could not have that conversation. Right. Teachers did not talk about it. It just wasn't something we could talk about. We had to have our private conversations outside of the school. The school would not tolerate that conversation because there was two different sides and they didn't have to pick one. So no one took the action to saying, you know, that was a race. Right. If it was racism, it was just, we just don't talk about it. Right. The black people can feel this way, the white people can feel this way. We just don't have that conversation. Right. And that's not how you handle and that's how we've been handling a lot of the
Right.
situations. We just don't talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's time to bring it into the light, right? I mean, even if
Absolutely.
says so many times in
Absolutely.
the Bible, the enemy will like to keep things in the darkness because that's where he's, does best, and he can make you think all these lies and trick your mind and
Exactly.
stuff. It's not until you bring things into the light that God can really show and shine through. Let's
If
talk,
you see
yeah.
something, say something. Um, feeling safe in America, I'm going to speak for myself as a Black woman. It's hard. Like, we hear these stories about Black men getting pulled over. Black women get pulled over all the time, and there's no leniency. The same aggression and the same anger and dislike and racism does not go away because I'm a female. I've been talked to like a whore on the street, for not having my seatbelt on, or at the one time I was driving from Philadelphia to Virginia, and I got to Delaware and I had a hood on because it was cold. It was in the wintertime, and I got pulled over. And the only reason I got pulled over was because you could see my black hands, but I had a hood on. And this is like, you know, 90 something. And I remember getting scolded and yelled at, and I got a ticket, but he sat me out there for over 2 hours yelling at me for driving with a hood on, and there's no difference. And, feeling safe in America, if someone saw that, would they have come to my rescue if something happened to me? That is my biggest fear, and it's always been my biggest fear, traveling and just being by myself and doing things like, will someone protect me if someone attacks me because of my race? If I'm not around anyone that
Yeah.
looks like me, will I be safe? Will some woman or some man say, that's not right, leave her alone? Or, you know what I mean? Like, I never
Yeah.
feel that security that, if I'm in a store and, something happens, like, will someone come and rescue me if no one in that space looks like me?
Yeah.
Well, am I safe? And that I've always had that feeling, and I'm just speaking for myself. And I don't want to pass that on to my son, but at 12, he knows what that feels like already.
Yeah.
So and that is a common conversation for me and my family to have about being safe wherever we are. Is it okay? And I live in an area where there's not a lot of people that look like me. So I constantly feel that way. I constantly feel that way. Am I going to be safe if something happens? If a police pull me over and unjustly and,
Yeah.
want to
It's
do something.
Yeah, it's horrible. And I think that's one of the things I struggled with the most watching the George Floyd video was, how can someone stand there videoing the whole thing and not do something?
Yeah.
But I don't have all the facts, and someone please correct me if I'm wrong, but my assumption is the person filming was probably also Black or a person of color, and so they feared their life just as much as here George Floyd is being murdered.
Yeah.
And that's why they didn't step up and do something about it, right? Which rightfully so.
You don't want to get shot. You don't want to
Exactly.
get.
They don't want to be the next one dead, right?
So
but I think, like, if I had been there, like, I would have tackled that guy. Like,
but I would be scared. I would be scared to death to do that. That would never come to my mind, because I know that if I even approached a cop, that he has every right to kill me.
Right. Right.
Totally different. Like, you would be enraged and I would be in fear.
Yeah.
Totally opposite.
Yeah.
And
it's a shame that, it's come to that, and I shouldn't say it's come to that. It's always been that way.
Yeah.
It's always been that way. From the beginning, it has always been this way. That
always.
Black people are just treated differently, and not just differently, but inhumanely, basically. You're not even treated as human beings. And that's why I say this is more than just a racism issue. It's a human rights issue.
Oh, absolutely.
It's an equality issue. Like, God created all men, and he his image. Not one person is better, not one person is less, not one person this, that, And unfortunately, our country does not view it like that.
No, not openly. We have people that wholeheartedly feel that way, but they don't speak up, and they don't put action to it. And it's not just white people. We have, Asians, Hispanic, all different races who feel the same way, and they just, everyone is protecting themselves and not speaking up. But I'm just so happy that people are speaking up.
Scared, and even white people are scared. It's obviously a different type of being scared. We're not necessarily afraid of the police. I mean, I'm as a woman, somewhat afraid, but definitely not on the same level that people are afraid of the police. That's definitely no question. But I think, someone asked the question, and I don't know if she's on right now, but she asked me in my DMs, why has it taken this so long? Why has it taken so long for white people to stand up, to take a stand, to talk about this, to have these conversations? And I think to a certain degree, like, we're afraid, right? Sometimes we're afraid it's going to come out wrong. We're afraid we're going to be judged. I think people are afraid of repercussions. Like, I am fully aware of the conversation that we're going to have today, and the fact that it's not going to be, the most probably well-received conversation, because we're taking it from a Christ and Christian standpoint.
Which is bold. Thank you. Very bold.
People will not want to work with me because I'm a Christian, or that I'm openly Christian, or that I talk about the Bible, or that I talk about Jesus. And I'm sure some people aren't going to want to work with me because I'm having this conversation. And I am totally okay with that, because I'm willing to risk that and put that all aside. And it's not about money at the end of the day. It's not. And the majority of the things that are wrong in this country are wrong because it is about money.
Money, exactly. And a Christian standpoint, because our religion, we are passionate about our religion, and it's bigger than us. This is a situation that our faith has to be involved. For me, it has to be involved. There's no way I can teach my son compassion without teaching him about Christianity and teaching him about Jesus Christ. So, and understanding. There's no way you can teach understanding and not mention Jesus Christ and mention God. So for me, this is a passion conversation, and it's something that we need to have. And I suggest to people, if you can't have this conversation without being angry and you and someone in a tangle, have it in the name of Christ. Put everything on the table and just make peace and have it be a safe place and just talk. There's friends that have been friends for years, black and white, and they don't know each other because they're dealing with the image of each other and how they're supposed to be friends, but they're not truly friends because, there's just things they haven't talked about. They haven't talked about race. They haven't talked about how they really feel about white people or how they really feel about black people. They just know how they feel about each other. Right? So this conversation it's putting strains on relationship because they're not authentic, because the true conversation hasn't been had yet. Like, how do you really feel about me, my color, and the people that are behind me? Not just me, and like, I have friends that I love. Like I said, I recently had a situation with my son, and the lady that was with my son, I trust her. She's a white lady. I trust her wholeheartedly with my child. If anyone had my child, I would be a little nervous. But with her, I had no doubt that he would be, in good hands, and she would go to bat for him. And I knew that. And a situation happened when it was someone was very racist towards him, and she lost it. She lost it, and she said, Martu, I can't believe, like, 2020 with all this. I said, well, he understands that that's what's happening in the world, but he also understands that's his world. That's what he has to go up against every day. I had that conversation with him when he was 6, and I have to have it with him every so often. At 6 years old, I had to tell him that he was black, that you're a black boy, and this is what that means. This is what it means to these people that don't look like you. This is what it means, okay? And of course, he didn't understand it at 6, but at 10, in the 4th grade, he understood it. He got it very well.
Right.
But
probably because he experienced it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but those conversations aren't being had in all white homes. You're not saying, no one's and they're saying, well, these are Black people, and no, but I have to have that conversation when he's 6 years old. When he doesn't understand or he doesn't notice that someone's treating him different, and I have to pull him to the side and say, that's not right and that's not fair. Let me tell you why. And I want you to be aware that some people are not going to treat you fairly, but you have to be aware of it.
Yeah.
That's just, but we need to have more of these conversations in schools. Like I told you, I believe the school has to play a big part of it. Our churches have to play a big part of it. I go to a non-denominational church, and it's all colors, all rainbows. And, my pastor is very open about race, but a lot of the older people in the church are not.
Yeah.
So it's up to us to force that conversation. And I want to be one of those people that's going to force the conversation.
Yeah.
We have to have it. We have to have it. There's no way we can have change if we just close the door and put a Band-Aid over it and say that, oh, we did it, and then no action is behind it. Yeah. There's no change. It was just an event that happened.
Yeah. Definitely one of the actionable steps, if you guys are taking notes, because we're going to give you a whole list of actionable steps that you can take, having those difficult conversations with your parents, with your children, with your coworkers, with your boss, with your pastor, with your church leadership team, worship team. It's having those difficult conversations. If you work in an office and it's all white people that work there, why is it all white people? And I'm not saying that, every office has to hire like one Black person and one Latino person and one Asian person and this, to like represent the whole world. But, there needs to be these conversations to find out what are the values behind the company, right?
Exactly.
Who are you really working for at the end of the day? And in my opinion, it's got to come from more white people. White people have to be doing this. It is our responsibility to do this.
I want to give another example of feeling safe. When I started out, I don't know, are we going to say names of businesses? No?
Whatever you want to.
I worked at one of the famous bra and panty companies in the world. And, there was none of us, no one of color. And I remember being in a meeting and we were talking about the flesh toned bra, right? The t-shirt bra, but it's the color of your skin, right? So t-shirt bra, we're going on and going on and going on and on. And I remember our boss, who was like not directly my boss, but she was the boss. And she said, Martu. And I looked up like, oh my God, I'm no one, I'm an assistant, I'm new. She said, can you wear this bra? And I was like, yeah. She was like, is it flesh tone or is it? And I was like, no, it's pink. Like it doesn't. And she's like, and she said, well, this is not for everyone. Like that was the first time someone kind of spoke up and said, like, these bras we were making, these colors are not for everyone. And she was a white woman, but she just made, and I was like, oh my God, now all the attention's on me, but now everyone's brain's like moving because you're in a space with a bunch of white women who are making decisions, women of color.
Yeah.
And when she said that, I was just like, oh my God. But if she did not say that, would that have come up? When would it have come up? Like when would that have been like, oh yeah, we have other people with other skin tones. Pink is not, or flesh tone is not the color for everyone. And I was just like, wow. And mind you, again, these are like being in a corporate setting when it's just me and not feeling like I can say anything and someone actually says something. So there's women out there, women that are not Black or Latino that do speak up, but it's just not enough. It's just not enough. She was a smart businesswoman, and I always gave her that. She knew business, and it didn't make sense to her that we were making bras in one color, calling it flesh tone. You know what I mean? Like it's just a lot of things that we're doing. It's just not common sense, right? It just doesn't make sense. And for her, it was like, this doesn't make sense. We have a woman in the room that can't wear this bra.
Did they change anything? Did they add?
Well, they added the tan, we do have the brown, and that's back in the 90s. That was like 99. So of course they got a little bit more colors in there, but yeah, she called it out. she called it out, and no one in that room was thinking about any other skin tone.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. And that's in so many different industries. I can just talk about the fashion industry, but
Yeah.
just think about, other industries where we're just not considered, just not spoken about. We're not there. So we're not spoken about, we're not considered.
Yeah. I mean, even if you look at television commercials, I'm sure up until, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe it was predominantly white, still predominantly white people in the television commercials. But now, they're slowly adding, we have a Black couple, and now we have an interracial couple, and then
A lot of
we have a gay
interracial.
couple, and this couple, and that, obviously, I think they're taking it a little too far, but I'm
becoming
just glad to see, yes,
okay to see those images.
Yeah.
But you cannot represent that part of the world or a part of America, because that's America. We're all intertwined. There's so many interracial children and families out there. You cannot not represent them. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited when now they're including us in makeup. Until Rihanna decided to make 50 shades. Now everyone's making 50 shades. And then I remember having a conversation with a makeup artist, and she said, well, all the major brands made 50 shades. They just didn't put it up on the counter. You had to ask for it.
Oh.
So you can have there's more than 50 shades, but only the primary colors are up that are shown. So, again,
Yeah.
Where's the equality in makeup? Like you don't put our skin tones up there.
Yeah.
So, but now you go to L'Oreal, you go to Maybelline, you have all these different shades, and it wasn't even like that. I can say 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, I think I've noticed more in the recent years, even like
it's like 2 to 3 years where you can get the rainbow. Yeah. Outside of that, I didn't wear makeup because there's 4 shades of black. Like for brown girls, like, okay, what do I do now? I don't fit those 4 shades. So
you gotta mix 3 of them to get the right.
Yeah, exactly.
It's horrible. It's so horrible.
But it's like little things like that. Like you would never think about that.
No.
You go to L'Oreal, any shade you want is there, and I'm standing next to you, and I'm like, oh, never mind. And then it's like, you know what I mean? Like it's a lot of little things that we're just not included. We're just not a part of the conversation. But that's always been our struggle, and I think we have to have, as Black people, a better way to present here, like disaster or a major crisis. It needs to, like for me, Rihanna was a hero because she just brought it out, like 50 shades. Now everyone's scrambling to get their shades together. You know what I mean? Like it was a silent, it was just done. And it was done. And I feel like we have to do more of those things, like to be included in the conversation. And I'm not just talking about fashion and makeup, because that's pretty much all I know. But there's other things in the world that's going on, and we're just like, especially in this country, we're just not included. We're just not included in the conversation, so we don't exist. Like we disappear, and it takes a situation like what happened to bring awareness that there's privilege. There's privilege. So
yeah. And I think a lot of white people struggle with the word white privilege because they think that it means that they didn't have to work hard, and actually that's not the definition of it whatsoever.
No, it has nothing to do with working. It's a birthright. Like exactly. For me, it's your birthright. You're white. Like it's okay. It's okay. It has nothing to do with how hard you work. In my world, if you are white privileged, it doesn't mean anything about how hard you work, where your family comes from. It's your birthright. If you are white, there's just certain things that's going to happen and be given to you that I just don't have privilege to. I just don't. And if I do someone is giving me that privilege to be a part or to join in or to do, I'm not just automatically, it's okay for me. I can't, 2020, I still can't go certain places,
You still can't go certain places.
Yeah. This is certain parts of the city in Florida, states, I can't go in certain towns. I can't. But it's still going to raise some eyebrows. That's a privilege to be able to go anywhere in the world and no one second guesses you, ever, ever. You're a white woman. What are you, like, you can go anywhere. You can hitchhike across the world, Amsterdam, wherever, Greece, wherever. I can't do that. And I travel a lot and I make it a habit of asking because I've had unpleasant situations where I have to ask, is it diverse? I ask a lot of hotels. I have no problem asking that because I don't want to be in a situation where I'm uncomfortable and people are uncomfortable around me. So I ask.
Yeah.
And a lot of us, we don't, and we go places and we're not welcome. Period. Just not welcome.
Yeah. And it's a shame because it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah. Just not welcome. You're certain places don't want to see you. You're not supposed to be at a yacht club. You're not supposed to be in the south of France on a yacht with a couple of friends that don't look like you. What are you doing here? You can't be walking around Greece shopping by yourself. This is some things all of us just can't do.
Yeah.
So that's when you say white privilege, it's just that right it's like an international passport, no questions, it's okay, and just it is what it is.
Yeah. And I think of it as like being born into a rich family, right? If you're born into wealth, if your parents are the king and queen of whatever country or something, right? You now have all of these additional privileges that maybe somebody that isn't born into that family, right, has.
Yeah.
And basically, if you're born white, you are born into that privilege.
Yeah.
You have a head start. You have a different starting point than Black people or people of color.
Yeah.
And so that
hard
word, I think what I really want a lot of white people to understand. Yeah.
It's hard to understand that. And I just, if you could just mirror one of a Black friend and just kind of be in the background and not stand next to them and just see the reaction sometime at certain places, you would be very surprised. You would be very, very surprised. I was in Paris and I had a great time, but I'm always aware of people's reactions to me. And I'm okay because I know some people will be racist and I'm not ever surprised. But some people just are. They just don't see it. And if they do see it, their reaction is anger and they want to, immediately change the situation. But it's every day. It's not something that is, a seasonal thing. It's not something that, is an event. It's every day. It's every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's every day. So just be aware of I can just tell you, just be aware of your friends and how they're being treated. And sometimes you don't have to do a protest. You might take that person to the side and say, look, I don't know what your deal is, but you didn't treat my friend fairly. Like, I don't operate that way. Sometimes it's just that conversation. And people, what I've noticed is it's just the way they're trained to act, and they probably don't even believe how, they don't even understand why they're reacting to me that way. It's just what they know how to react. She shouldn't be here. I don't know why. You know what I mean? So it's
something that has been ingrained in them from the beginning, from their parents, from their school, from their coach at sports or whatever.
Exactly.
People around them, where they grew up, It amazes me sometimes because I did grow up in a predominantly up in the suburbs of Philly in a very, suburb area. It was not rural, but suburb. And it was all white. And I try to think back to like, when did I realize that there were different races? And I don't exactly know. I can't like 100% pinpoint like when this moment occurred to me in my childhood. But I do specifically remember my grandfather, who, of course, is a very typical Italian, strict grandfather, who like fought in the war and all that kind of stuff, who was like saying one time, I overheard him saying one time at the table, and I must have been like, I don't know, 10 years old. I don't even know how old I was, 8 years old, 10 years old, something like that, I think. Mm-hmm. And he said, oh, today I saw, you know, a white boy and a brown boy and a Chinese boy and a whatever other boy or something. And they were all playing together. And he had this like look on his face, like of disgust. They were all playing together. Wow. And I'm like, Grandpa, what's wrong with that? That's beautiful that they're all playing together. He's like, no, they shouldn't be playing together. They're different races and da-da-da-da. And he like went off on this whole thing.
Wow.
And I still remember that to this day and thinking like, what? How could you possibly think that way? Like, that's beautiful to me that all these different races are playing together as boys. And it just goes to show you, like, one, the generational differences.
Yeah.
And two, you know, the issues that we still have in America.
Yeah, well, you know, those behaviors are passed down. It's passed down, and you didn't get that bug, obviously.
Thank God I didn't get it. I don't know how I didn't get it because
But you know, and then a lot of people just don't know. Like, they just don't know. These are things that have been passed down to them. I know white people, I mean Black people, anyone now, you can't trust them.
That's
don't
like,
deal with them. I know
like being anti-race or
exactly.
reverse racism.
Exactly.
Which isn't the answer either. Like, all white people are not bad, just like all blacks are not bad, just like all Black people are not bad. Like, you can't make generalizations because of a few or even the majority of the people acting or doing something wrong. You just can't. There's always going to be good people in every people group, in every job, in every, you know, situation.
Exactly. And, you know, I have friends that I like absolutely love. And one friend, you know, we had a really great conversation, and I said, I know you love me and I love you. So, but I'm who I am. You have to know these people before you make decisions about them, right? You made a decision about me. We've been friends for so many years. You can't base how you feel about people on a stereotype when you love me. You know what I mean? Because she was saying, I mean, she loves me, and I know she does, but she grew up a certain way, and it's just certain things she's not comfortable with dealing with. But then my question to her, well, how can you feel the way you feel about, but I know you, you know, her friend, but I know you, I know you're not like that. But then you have to give everyone else that chance. And I'm not saying everyone you walk by, you have to give a chance, but before you make these types of, you know, statements, you have to know people. Yeah. And everyone is different. You know, I'm raising a young man. He's a Black boy, you know. You can't make those type of decisions about Black boys when I'm raising one and you love him to death. You know what I mean? And I need, like, you would want your child to be a child. I want my child to be a child, but I can't. He's been an adult since he was 6 years old. I had to have a conversation with him at 6 years old. I took innocent play away from him. I took
that again. You had to play
it away.
Right.
Because I had to have that conversation with him. And I just, you know, you as a parent, you don't want to take away the innocence of love. But you, you know, the world we live in, you have to explain to a Black child who they are right away. You don't want them to get it mixed up. You never want them to not know who they are in certain situations. And that's just something we all have to really, you know, you have to love people for who they are. And if you don't know them, it's okay, but you got to have some kind of compassion and try to want to understand people.
Of course, it starts with compassion.
Exactly. So we need to have compassion for other people. When I see a child being abused, I don't see a white child or a Spanish. I see a child. My heart breaks. My heart doesn't break any less if they're not white, you know what I mean, or not Black. Like, my heart breaks. If I see a woman being abused, I want to help her. I don't care what race she is. And I have people that, they will not, because that woman is a certain color, they will not help her. And I have a problem with that. That's what I'm like, where's the compassion? Where's our love? We're loving our neighbor and just being people, being, humans.
Yeah.
Like, I think racism takes away our ability to be humans and be compassionate.
Definitely. Definitely. Because the only way you can treat someone that poorly is if you don't view them as a human being.
Exactly.
That is literally the only way you can treat someone that poorly.
It
Like,
takes away your
God did not
humanity.
design us to treat other human beings this way. We were not
Exactly.
designed that way. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. It's sad. And that's, like I said, I try to tell my son, people are people, but we still have to love. We still have to give people a chance. I never want him to have a hard heart. I don't have a hard heart. I've been through hell and back, in my life, but I'm never going to not, Jesus is about love. God is about love.
Yeah.
And the only way we can, have full lives is if we love. It's not love. So I don't ever want to have a hard heart. There's too many good people in this world. I've been blessed so many times, outside of my race, just because of the person I am, and thank God that I was raised in a church, and I had a good upbringing, and I know people, not color, and I've been, people have come to me where in situations where, I'm like, do you see who, and they don't see that. They see me. And I actually had a conversation with my pastor about it. I was going through a really hard time, and people were helping me, all kinds of people. And I said, sometimes I don't know, like I feel like I'm at the end of the rope, and then something happens. And she said, Martu, people see who you are, like who God
Created you.
need you to be. Exactly. That's who they respond to. They're not responding to how you look. They're not responding to what you wear. They're seeing who God sees.
Yeah.
And that, like, as a woman, it just,
Yeah.
that's a lot to understand. Like, wow, like people can actually see past all this and just see my heart, and being blessed. It just showed me that this world is better than that. We're better than that. And if we just see people for who they are and just be more compassionate and understanding, we don't have to have the answers, but at least try, try and make an effort, and be open and honest. Ignorance is not a bad thing. It's something that can be changed. You just have to get more, get information. It's something you just don't have information on. You just don't understand, but it's not a bad thing, and it's not something you should hide behind. Everything's being exposed in 2020, so let's deal with it.
Yeah, educate yourself. I highly recommend. That's one of our actionable steps. We watched the 13th movie, Netflix documentary. It's been out for a while, and so that was very eye-opening to me. If anyone hasn't watched it, I highly recommend it. But there's so many books, there's so many good authors, there's so many, conversations like the ones that we're having right now that you can tune in, you can listen to, and just educate yourself, and understand that you may not know it all, or there may be a different perspective, or there may be something that you've been believing all along that actually isn't really real at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So educate yourself. And then you also touched on the other point, which I was going to say is, in my opinion, and I'm sure you probably agree with me, Martu, the biggest thing we can all do is pray. Like, the only way, in my opinion, the only way this is really, really ever going to change is if people's hearts are changed.
Yeah.
And no law you can pass. There's not enough protesting you can do. There's nothing that we can do as humans to change someone's heart. Only God can change someone's heart.
Yeah.
And we've got to pray. We've got to pray for people to have their eyes opened, to have their ears opened, for their hearts to be softened. We have to pray for our enemies. And I know this is not like a popular side to kind of take right now. And I know a lot of people are angry, and a lot of people are feeling a lot of pain towards so many white people and so many officers and all these different things. But at the end of the day, like, we are called to pray for them.
Absolutely. You have to
forgive them.
You have to pray for your enemies, and we have to pray. We just have to keep, you know, keep God in the center of this. We can't make this about revenge. We can't make this about being right. You know, it's about us coming together and being people together. It's and you know, I've had conversations with white blacks, and it's people want to be right, and people want you know what I mean. People want to be right. It's not about being right. It's a you know, it's not a right and wrong situation. This is it's huge. You know, there's no be one conversation then it's over. This is lifelong of therapy that we all need to be taking at the same time. We all need to be in therapy. We all need to be talking to each other. We all need to be sharing. If you should have someone in your life, and if you don't, I'm open. My information's up there. I'll have a conversation with you. Just talk about it. There's so many questions people have for Black women or Black men, Black people in general, and I know that a lot of Black people are not making it easy to be approachable at this time because there's a lot of fight to power and there's a lot of anger that's built up. And, you know, it's in that moment, it might be the right time, might not be the right time to speak to them. But, you know that there's people out there that you can't talk to, someone in your church, someone in your community. If, like I said, I'm open. If there's 11 or 15 of us here, I'm open to have that conversation. But you know, and I'm gonna say openly, just be mindful that Black people are in a space where they finally feel empowered, and they feel like they have a voice, and they feel like people are listening. So it's a pros and cons with that. And I'm a Black woman, and I'm saying it's pros and cons with that because we have a lot of righteous people, and I don't want that righteousness to turn into, you know, racism. You know, right? And that's why I'm like, I'm being very careful. It's like I get it. We are empowered. We can speak freely. We can have these conversations. But I don't want to harden my heart now because I'm empowered. You know, so you know, just. It's a touchy space. Yeah. It's very touchy.
Just be careful.
Choose the conversation wisely. I wouldn't choose any random person on the street because you don't know what you're going to get. Choose to have a serious conversation with someone you know and trust, and you can create a safe place. I just want to be honest with you. I always try to lead with this is a safe because there's a lot of unanswered questions. We've been living lives where we just assume this is how we're supposed to behave. You know, she's Black, she works with us, she's cool, and that's it. Like, I don't have to have a conversation with her. We have nothing in common. But that's not true. You're both women, mothers. You work in the same building. You know, I'm not saying be friends.
You're both human. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So, just if you want to have that conversation, I would say, know who you're talking to. Yeah. If someone's walking around with a fist, I'm not saying that they're going to attack you. It's very raw right now. Yeah. It's very raw. It's very intense. And people are really angry, you know. And it's not at every white people. They don't want to beat up white people. It's just a lot of emotion, especially for me. I know for as women, I've had a lot of mommy conversation. It's a lot of, you know, I have a boy. He's 12 years old and he's 5'5". You know what I mean? 5'5". We're the same height. I'm only an inch taller than he is. Yeah. And he's, you know, an adult will look at him as an adult, but he's 12 years old. And I want him to be a 12-year-old boy that can run around and play and ride a skateboard and ride his bike and not be threatened by the cop or feel like he can't be free to do like his friends. You know? I told him he couldn't ride on a golf course. And he's like, why, Mom? I said, because you ride on a golf course is different than your friend Lex riding on a golf course. If someone sees Rex riding around, it's okay. But you by yourself in your dirt bike, it's not okay. Yeah. And then I was like, it's just not okay. Yeah. You know? And I shouldn't have to have that conversation. It should just be boys riding their bikes on a golf trail. Yeah. You know, but it's not so, you know. So all I'm saying to people, especially white people, you know, try to find a safe conversation. I don't want you to get in a shouting match of who's right and who's wrong, but I really always wanted to ask. It should be okay. I'm not going to judge anyone for not knowing something. And I know a lot of, like you said, I just didn't know. I know you didn't know. I know you didn't know because I know you. If you knew, you would not react the way, I know that. But we don't have that conversation. I'm not coming to you and saying, you're supposed to do this because this happened. I'm not supposed to approach you and say that. That's not proper. Where we have our boundaries. And these lines are getting really thin, right? These lines are getting really thin. Where there's no boundaries, we should be able to speak freely, and we should be able to work. We have to work through this. We have to. This world will be so amazing. Can you imagine?
And I like what you said about it's not about being right, and I think that's really important. My husband, who happens to be a pastor, always says all the time, especially if a couple is fighting, a friend is fighting, whatever is going on. Is it worth it to be right, or is it worth it to keep the relationship? Which is more important, right?
Exactly.
At the end of the day, if my husband and I have an argument about something, I want to keep the relationship. It's not about being right. And I will fully admit, you know what? I'm wrong. I'm sorry. I will apologize, because what matters at the end of the day is our relationship. And so I think, that's kind of why I titled this whole topic of conversation, Race and Relationship, because we need to build more relationships. There needs to be more white allies standing up and fighting for their Black brothers and sisters and people of color, and, sticking together and not being worried, not being afraid, not being, well, I'm right and this is the way it is. It's not about right and wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a really wonderful lady say to me, she said, I'm so happy I'm a part of a travel group, and it's 5-star. Like I said, I travel a lot. 5-star. A lot of the women are older, very set in their ways, which I completely get. I have no judgment. And she's flat about it. And I have social media pages, Instagram pages. I have 4, and that business page is for my travel. So I actually had to think about it, because remember, I have 5-star clients. 90% of them do not look like me. 99% of them do not look like me. I cater to their lifestyle. And I thought about it. I said, do I black out on, when we have Blackout Tuesday, do I black out on this page? And I said, I would be doing an injustice to myself if I didn't. So I did. And, I didn't get any likes from anyone that I knew, and it was okay. I'm not here to judge anyone. This is for me. And I remember one of the ladies saying to me, she said, I'm so happy you did that. She said, I tried to do something, I got such a bad lack. She said, I'm so happy you did that. And I was like, wow, thank you. No one liked it, but nobody liked it, but I had to. Like, I'm not gonna not be who I am,
minutes left, Martu. I just want to let you know, because it's going to shut off, because it's
an
hour long.
I said.
And I don't want to keep you too long. What would you say? I know we didn't get it to talk to. There are so many things I wanted to talk about. What is the one thing you want to leave everybody with?
We have to keep talking. There's no right and wrong. Your ignorance is not, your fault. It's, so we shouldn't be so hard on ourselves. And we need to just be more compassionate.
Yeah.
We can make this as painful as possible, and we can make this as powerful as possible. And I would like this to be a powerful resolution. This should be amazing, and we should everyone should be victorious at the end of this.
Yeah.
And what I mean at the end, I mean my son, his children, he's 12, should look back on this and be like, oh my God. Dad, how did that feel?
Yeah.
When things changed, started.
Well, thank you so much, Martu. And hearing your perspective and sharing this space with you. And you're such a good friend and sister in Christ, and I love you so much. So thank you so much.
I love you too. Thank you for even
please follow her at MEF Production.